is the topic is restructuring a relationship or just changes in the format of the relationship, whether that's a full breakup or whether that's, staying in a relationship because of co-parenting or staying because of friends or staying because you're in the same pod, whatever, but just how difficult it can be to shift the dynamic.
Yeah, especially after long-term relationship. I mean, it can be difficult at any point, I guess, in any relationship, but I know for especially like after long-term relationships, I've had several clients actually come in and, are came in for couples therapy where we're trying to, help them in their relationship. And then it turned out that we had to kind of pivot and refocus our work around, the changes in the relationship, the structure changes in the structuring of the relationship, which side note is a whole nother topic in and of itself of like, just a quick little blip about that of like couples therapy. I think maybe the assumption thinking that like our role is to help keep the relationship together and going, but it's not always the case. And sometimes it is about, helping them to end the relationship or change it in some kind of way. So yeah, and I've experienced several of that.
Yeah, and I think it's rare that people are exactly on the same page. Oftentimes, it can be that one would like to stay in the relationship, the other one wouldn't, and like maybe they feel betrayed, even if there were no like major indiscretions. But just it's a lot of complicated feelings to have to navigate at once.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, I think especially like restructuring is something that I love to focus on because I do work with a lot of long-term couples who come in and like, in long-term relationships, things are constantly shifting. And if we resist the change, right, it makes it harder. Um, but there's always one person that's more resistant to it than the other, right? The person
Mhm.
that's initiating the change versus the person that feels like they're along for the ride. I think that's what you're talking about. Like, there's
Yeah.
always like this sort of like imbalance, which I think is what becomes our role is like helping them see the other side's perspective a lot of times.
That's such a
Yeah,
great point, Mo, about the resisting. Go ahead. Well, Kelly, I mean, Mo, how, like, in your experience, I mean, how would somebody kind of tell the difference between resisting and then, or just like, I mean, feeling the pain of the changes or whatnot. Like, what's considered resisting versus, I think some people might just feel like, I just don't want this. This is painful. This is hard. And versus like, I don't know. Does you understand my question?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think that's what resistance is I don't want it. Or,
Mm,
like maybe there's like defensiveness showing up in the session, put like pushback around ideas on how this can be helpful. Um, just, digging their heels in the mud around like, again, a lot around fear and pain. Like, this is too hard because change is hard. And we did an episode a few weeks ago where we talked about homeostasis, and homeostasis can often, right, keep couples stuck because that's a system that is already working. It's safe, it feels comfortable.
Mhm.
Comfortable in quotes because obviously one person, the one that's wanting more change, is experiencing some discomfort. Even though there's a homeostasis, someone's feeling discomfort, hence wanting the change.
Yeah. But I think a lot of times people will feel betrayed because you meet someone, you get into a relationship with them, you're with them for a very long time maybe, and that entire time you're building presumably towards some shared goals, some shared ideas, and you're investing a lot. And then all of a sudden, the other person's like, "No, we're going to sever that." And then just in one conversation, it's supposed to be, "Hold on, we have to look at this very differently." So, I definitely one of the things I found is helping people not only mourn the loss of the relationship, but also mourn the loss of that future that they were building together and how they thought things were going to be. And people can get very angry, like maybe somebody helped somebody else get through school, maybe somebody, it was promised that we were going to have kids and now you're getting to the end of childbearing age. Like there's a lot of investment, and so for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses and bounce, that's really, that's can be really painful, and I think people get really angry and feel betrayed, and those are very difficult emotions to deal with.
whew. I felt that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel for that. Yeah. The betrayal, the investment that we put in for many years and the betrayal and how it can often seem, like you said, in one conversation, it can seem like all of a sudden, you know,
Plot
this kind of,
twist.
yeah, this like out of nowhere it just hit you and, there's now this change and it doesn't often happen that way though. Like,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, but I
It
also,
feels all of a sudden, but I think usually
yeah,
it's kind of a progressive thing.
I think
yeah,
that
but
what
there
you're
is
saying,
the one determining conversation of, well,
Yeah,
yes, I
yeah,
really have decided I want to be out.
right.
Here's the other thing. I kind of feel like oftentimes the person that's ending it, they're at the end of the end, and the person who's being broken up with is at the beginning of the end. And so you got two different people. You got people in two different
yeah.
places.
Places. Yeah.
You've got one
Mm,
person that's either been out to lunch and doesn't really know, is like, what the hell's going on? I had no idea you felt this way. Either they've been out to lunch or they haven't been listening, right? Or they've been in denial, right? Or the other person hasn't been honest, right? They haven't been straight up and saying, like, I'm not happy, this isn't working. They haven't initiated those conversations. Instead, they've sort of let it go on unspoken, and then all of a sudden they're upset, right?
yeah.
There's so many different dynamics, though, as I'm thinking about it, because I also know of a couple that were very, they worked at it. They worked at it really hard. But what I noticed was one partner just would never respect the other person's wish, right? Like if the person said, I need more of this, or I need more of that, or I need more space, that the other partner just always pushed back on that and like almost like wouldn't take no for an answer or wouldn't respect what the other person wanted. And now, they've broken up and whatnot. But like, I feel like there's that too. It's like if your partner asks for something, and even if it's hard for you, you know, if if you don't go along with it, in a sense you're not respecting their wishes, right? Right? If you're in a place where you're like, nope, I can't accept that. I'm going to I don't believe that our relationship needs to do that, or you don't want this in the way that I want it, so I'm going to punish you, or whatever they're doing. It's a form of disrespect, right? If one person is clear and says, I want this way in the relationship, or I need more space, or I'm feeling this and that, and the other person pushes back on it, to me that feels disrespectful, right? I don't know.
But
I
there's
don't.
not an
Maybe
easy
maybe
answer.
I'm tangenting
No,
that.
but I mean, there's not an easy answer to that, right? Because then like, if someone is not wanting to do it or doesn't think the relationship can go there, then are they going against their values or what they want or what they need? So then it comes the really difficult place of, well, where do we land on this? You know?
Yeah.
Um,
I think trying to figure out where do they both connect at, right? Because it sounds like, both of them maybe connect around going back to something we talked about before, is fear, right? We can connect on that in that fear aspect of it because I'm afraid of change and the person who probably is initiating the change is still afraid of change as well. So can we connect there, maybe like let's kind of like try to meet there. What are we both feeling fearful about? What are we both feeling, is happening or going on? And if we can kind of have that conversation, maybe that can start to disarm the conversation around where we're both landing or may land at, actually.
yeah. Well, and to keep this in the scope of relationship shifting, I think you could use that too if they were having difficulty in the decoupling, right? Or just, I mean, just, it's about shifting the relationship outside of what the homeostasis is, outside of what the norm is, outside of what safe feels like, even if it's kind of toxic or unhealthy, it's still comfortable because it's how it's been. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of effort and
Yeah.
emotional labor to change it to something else. And there can be a lot of mourning coming along with it if it's going to end.
If the change is slow and incremental, obviously that's a lot easier versus like a complete severing out of the blue can be really hard. I think also the length of the relationship and the age of the partners makes makes a big difference. Like a younger partners are maybe more likely to bounce back than older partners. Like I don't really know, you know.
Yeah, then throw on the layer that we talked about earlier of like, having children together or any other kind of responsibilities,
Yeah.
I guess that brings up the question of like, do we have a certain level of obligation or responsibility, to the relationship, to our partners, to our families? That fine line between like I guess taking care of yourself, but also considering the people who are impacted and affected by it. So it's not easy. There is no easy answer on that.
Yeah. And also
Right.
trying to figure out like what is the relationship shifting to? Like, can we be friends? Are we still wanting some sort of relationship? Because that can feel a lot easier than just complete severance and now this person's not in your life anymore. There's no contact, there's no connection. But we can kind of figure out a space to where again we can still have something can feel a lot easier, I feel like, than just not have anything.
For some people, I think for some people that's what I
Some,
think
Yeah.
for
yeah.
the person who doesn't want the breakup, I think that can be even more painful. I mean, I'm pretty good at staying friends with my exes, and I definitely need some cool down time. Like I need to get used to not being in contact with you all the time. I need to get used to you us not being a we, right? I need some time, and then once things have kind of settled down, then maybe pick the friendship back up. But um,
Yeah.
because it's hard on both people, right? Like the one being broken up with feels rejection and maybe it could potentially be bitter and is thinking about all this, the effort they've put in. But I think it's difficult for the person doing the breaking up too, because they have to question, is this the right choice? Is it not? Is this not the right choice? Am I going to regret this? They've got a little more agency. And then the one being broken up with simply has to deal with well, I say simply, but has to deal with all the feelings that come with being broken up with, but the other one doing it, I think it's just hard. It's just hard. Ending relationships or shifting relationships, it's just difficult. It's very painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often talk about how I think that in our culture we associate breaking up with being angry, right? Like let's get into a fight and then we have to break up, right? Or breakups happen because we can't we disagree on something or like it hurts too much. And I think that is like like in our culture it has to get so bad before we break up, right?
Yeah.
No other
And
choice.
right, like like there's no other choice. But what if we were more conscientious about it and like I think that there's a lot of pressure to stay together, right? To stay together at all costs, no matter what. That is the equivalent of success in our culture, right? If you break up, you failed. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and on each other to, well, we got to stay, we got to stick together. And I think like that's what I like about the whole conscious uncoupling, you know, is that this isn't working for me, or this doesn't feel in alignment with where I want to go and what I want for myself. And I'd love to shift it, like kind of like what Wayne was saying, like you know, and we can use the tools that we have for like polyamory, like the relationship anarchy smorgasbord. Like I don't know if I want to still have a romantic connection with you. What if we're just friends and sexual, but I live somewhere else and blah. Like when we do restructuring, I think using tools like that can be helpful. Like, let's look at what is working. What do you love about this relationship? If you could keep a few things and then restructure the other things, what would be those things that we would keep? Because we've conflated sex and romance and long term and having babies, like we've conflated all of those things that are for the relationship escalator into one person, right? Like what if we said, hey, I love you, we have really great chemistry on these things, we share finances, we have kids, you're my best friend, and maybe we even share a house together. But I no longer feel romantic and I no longer feel sexual. Or maybe I still feel sexual, but I don't feel romantic, you know? Or maybe I just want sex with you and I'm going to go over here and do all this other stuff that I need to do with my life. Like, what if we looked at it from that perspective of we can have the relationship that works with that person,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I think that's what I was speaking to earlier when I was saying, having that amicable, like kind of like decoupling, or split. And I think that to your point, what you said is that when I think about culturally, though, I don't think we have the greatest support system around that, right? Because a lot of people don't understand it. It could be deemed as weird, like, oh, y'all still having sex, and I think that we don't have the proper support around shifting relationships and what they can actually look like opposed to what they're supposed to look like culturally. Like when you break up somebody, you're supposed to be done with them. You got your team that root for you. Like, yeah, forget that person over there. Like, we don't like them, or whatever the case may be. Instead of having that support system in the sense of like, look, I support you guys in whatever way you guys want to be because we're all still like friends or we're still okay or whatever the case may be. And I think that if we can just kind of like reshift the way we think about breakups and support systems. I think that that would be so helpful to breakups, like, just having that great support system.
Yeah.
Just being able to have these conversations, just to be able to be asked these questions or have the questions asked, like I wish we would have mentors. I mean, I guess we do through therapists and coaches, but I guess I just mean on a bigger, on a larger scale, kind of like our education system. I wish that we had like, just more parenting and relationship guidance and mentoring and, you know,
Well, we live in
education.
such a narrow sort of like realm when it comes to relationships. Like we've been relegated to one family households, right? The nuclear family. We've talked about this so much. I sometimes feel like here I go again.
Yeah.
But we've been relegated to single family homes, right? One family per home. So there is like a overarching macro structure that forces us into this role, right? And to think outside of the role, even like this kind of like parallels very much with our non-monogamy stuff. Even to think outside of those roles is so hard for people, right? So your partner comes to you and is like, I'm not happy with the way things are. We immediately go into panic mode because, but we have this house together with these kids and everybody on our block and our street and everybody in the world that we know has a house with the kids and like this doesn't compute. This does not compute. Like what you want to take your romance elsewhere and you still want like what? It doesn't compute. But it also like when we're looking at the history, like historical human nature, prior to the industrial revolution, blah 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 blah, like this is not how humans are supposed to be living. Like this is not human nature. We're not supposed to be relegated to single family homes, right? um so yeah, prior to the industrial revolution.
Right.
But okay, but then let's bring this back to like how we would work with clients. And yes, this does bring up homeostasis. They've got the homeostasis, they got the way that they've been functioning, and one or more people are unhappy with how it's going. And so to be able to sort of blow that up and then very mindfully and deliberately build back what you do want while having while having a parallel process of dealing with all the hard emotions that go with it, like you know that's really, I think that's a really beautiful thing that we get to do, that we get to walk people through. Okay, what would work for you? How can we get some of your needs met? Like Wayne said, what are the things that have been working and what's it going to look like to change these others? And that's something that you can go through systematically and talk about all the different pieces of your life, because it may look different. Like maybe one person works out of town 1 week out of the month every year. Anyway, there's all these different ways to look at it, right? And so to really lay out how does your relationship work? What are all the components of it? and let's start breaking it out for what's working, what isn't working, for
Mm.
the ones that aren't working, how are we going to shift it so it does, and just systematically go through there and help people have those difficult conversations.
I mean, that sounds beautiful, Kelly. You need to have a TV show. But I'm really like, how the heck do you do that when? I'm going to just like pose a scenario for you. One partner, 20 years later is like, I'm not happy. I don't want to be with you. Like has been holding on to this anger for maybe 10 plus years and has finally come to the breaking point. But in no time in those 10 years did they say it. So you're talking about, oh, let's be systematic about this and let's make it like this very conscious uncoupling or decoupling or
Yeah.
restructuring. When there's one person that's like 1 foot out the door, I don't fucking care. Right.
Yeah.
And those are the people that are like consistently in my office. They've waited until the very last minute. And like one person is out the door, and like, yeah, it's now our job to help them restructure in a systematic way. But we're dealing with one person that has been trying or has been frustrated for a consistently long amount of time, and they don't have any energy anymore, or they don't even care, and they don't even want to be here. Like, this is their last ditch effort. Like
Yeah.
those
Well,
are
I
the
mean,
people that are always showing up in my office. I don't know about you all, but no one's coming for preventative. No one's showing up like, yeah, we just want to talk about stuff before it gets out of hand. I do have a couple that did that I've been working with for a while. Love them. But most people are waiting till
yeah.
the end.
Well, I mean, I think you have to have two willing participants, and it sounds like there may not be willing participants. So I guess you just do damage control and try to not let it get worse. But if one person isn't wanting to build things back, even if it is
Or
in a
they're just
different,
not patient to do it systematically. They're like, nope, this is what I want. And like the other person, and I'm genuinely curious as a therapist who's been doing this for so long, like I'm at this point where it's become really hard because this person, it's almost like every single couple is so checked out, and then the other person's left holding the bag like, I don't want this, I want this to work, I'm willing to do anything, and they become the identified patient every single time.
I think I have some things to say about this. Well, one with kind of a personal part that Wayne, one day I was so overwhelmed in grad school when I was in grad school to become a therapist, and I was ready to quit. And Wayne like really hit me with something that like wowed me. And he was like, listen, because a lot of stuff was coming up in grad school. They don't tell you this, but a lot of your own stuff, a lot of your own shit comes up through your classes and the courses that you take and therapy you have to go through and stuff. And a lot of stuff was coming up for me that I just didn't know was there. And I was overwhelmed and ready to quit. And Wayne was like, all right, well, listen, I validated my experience and everything, but then said, the thing is, like, this stuff isn't going away. You're going to have to deal with it, whether you're in grad school or you're not, or you quit and you're not in grad school. And why not continue to grad school, learn the stuff, like it
yeah,
can potentially be supportive for you in this, even though it feels hard now, right? So anyway, so I bring that to say, like, with therapy and clients, like I think prior to helping them restructure and get systematic on like the relationship dynamic changing and whatnot, is kind of doing the same thing, but for their emotional process, like kind of putting the focus on the emotional piece before getting into the restructuring and the solution and whatnot. So addressing kind of the emotional piece and that there can be some kind of guidance structure process, like, psychoeducation on what that process can feel like or can it be like so that they're not just in it. They're like a little tiny baby step outside of it, and we get to kind of let them know, like, hey, this is what it can feel like, what it can look like when you're going through a breakup, going through a relationship. Um, and also that ultimately they have a choice, and either you go through the pain, kind of you can go through the pain by yourself, or you can go through the pain together. And I mean, it's no choice is wrong or bad, but I think maybe kind of highlighting that for them and giving them the option that they can actually go through it together, as painful as it is, and they can always change their mind too, but that there is a way through, and it doesn't have to be, you know, what we think it's going to be or whatnot. I hope that makes sense. But um, now practically, how do you do that? I mean, I don't know. I've kind of just been working, day by day and intuitively with clients, and sometimes it can feel and look chaotic and a mess, and that's because it is, because that's what they're feeling and going through. And but I have had clients like if they can every day, like we check in, like why are you here? Why do you want to be here? And I think ultimately they both end up saying that they really do love and care for each other, despite them being hurt, feeling betrayed, all the stuff. They really do love and care for each other. And, they want to, I don't know, they just want a better option. And they just kind of keep coming, having a space to be heard and felt. And then, there's like these moments where you just kind of like, well, how about this? And what about this? And I think people started to see the light when they started to feel like, oh, there is something beyond and something here for me. How we talk about in non-monogamy, how we're like, what's your personal why? Like, why are you being non-monogamous? Same thing. Like, maybe the breakup, it feels like it's happening to you because you didn't necessarily choose it, but there's still something here for you, and you get to kind of choose and decide what you want to get out of this. And I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. But I know what Mo's talking about, and I think it brings up like one of the most difficult things for people to deal with, which is resentment. Like if they're coming at the bitter end and one person just has all this stuff, resentment is that's a roadblock in a lot of ways. And I don't know of some surefire way to either help their partner reassure them or to how to help soothe them. Like I don't, resentment is just a really, really tough thing to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a surefire way, but I know like when we talked about resentment, I had mentioned this perspective of like I feel like a more empowering perspective of resentment where it's like instead of, oh, you did this to me, I'm resentful because you of the way that you did or did not show up for me. It's more like, well, this is also the way that I did or did not show up for myself. And
Mhm.
kind of, you know, I don't know. Again, yes, the breakup is happening to you, or you feel like, you have to break up or whatever, but there still can be something in it for you. That resentment, for me, kind of is like, there can be something here for you in this. And what can that be for you? What would you like it to be for you? Like, what can you control? Where do you feel where instead of focusing on the disempowerment, like, where do you feel empowered? I don't know.
I guess Mo kind of has me thinking and sort of in the other direction. And I'm thinking like how many like bitter, horrible like divorce stories I know about. And just when people are just so eaten. And it's funny, I'll use the phrase sometimes it feels like you're drinking the poison, expecting the other person to die. Like the person will be so bitter, so angry, and they're so wrapped up in that. It's like the other person's just moving along. You're over here drinking all this poison and it's not hurting them, it's hurting you. And you know, is I think it's just a slow process of trying to help get through there. And I don't know, like it doesn't always work. And both people aren't always willing to, systematically go through and break it down and rebuild it.
That's the
Yeah.
thing about conscious uncoupling too, is that I think the systematic process or the process doesn't have to be done together, but there can still be a process, and you can go through the conscious uncoupling process by yourself with yourself. It reminds me of this, Mo, when I used to they put the descriptions on the sex talk
Mhm.
YouTube thing for you. There was one that stood out to me, and it was like talking about breakups and, and sometimes like, yeah, we just need to clear cut, like we cannot have contact with it. But like you said, Kelly, we just need that space. We cannot do the work or any connection or whatever with that person. And we might just need that space to be in, feel the resentment, all of that before we can get to, any kind of, I don't know, positive
Resolution.
change or solutions. Yeah.
Um, when you were talking, I really like that idea of sometimes we have to do the healing ourselves, right? Like this idea that we can consciously uncouple together, great, fine. But if one person is not willing to do that yet, like Kelly was saying, like sometimes we have to do the work on our own. I think that's totally okay and valid as
Yeah.
well. And the goal doesn't have to be friends, it
Mhm.
doesn't even have to be like amicable. But I do think that like a lot of this can be prevented if we are able to talk about our feelings openly and early on. And I think that that is what most people are missing, right? Like a lot of this restructuring, decoupling stuff can be dealt with head on if they're brought up early on in the relationship in an authentic way. But I think that a lot of people are missing that tool and or skill on and or even like safety, right? To be able to say things to their partner.
Mhm. So, and that right there, that is the thing, right? If that can be used in so many ways, if people were to have that tool right there alone, can shift so many dynamics in relationships, so many so much resentment. It gets shit because now it's preventive, right? We're preventing a lot of things building up, and because we have that space to talk in the beginning, we get to talk about what the relationship looks like for us, desires, feelings, emotions, all these things we get to talk about. How I'm, in that in itself is would be so helpful. And I use that tool as well when I'm working with couples. Like, but it sucks that we have to that now you've been in your relationship for so long and now you're just now getting introduced to this. If we could introduce that in the beginning, oh my gosh, man, like
Well,
game
but here's the
changer.
thing, when the relationship's going good, everybody thinks they're great communicators, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, me and my partner, we communicate so great. We talk about everything." And like there's no need for couples therapy at that time, right? In those early stages, people are just like things are really going really well. I believe that, you know. And oh my God, we have so much in common, and things are going so good, um, and people ignore red flags. Like I have a couple right now. I'm not going to share the details, but I'm like, really, you're gonna do that next thing together? Oh, and you're gonna do that next thing together. Like you're gonna you're gonna escalate into all these things, but we've got all of these red flags that we've been dealing with in the relationship you know um people
Yeah,
are hopeful.
yeah.
People want
I've
to
been
believe that the relationship's going to work out, and I just want to say, like, newsflash, it's not going to just work out. You are going
Yeah.
to have to work at
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I've been asking my couples recently about like, is there anything that we feel as though has been hard for us to talk about or that we've been avoiding? Because when in that exercise, I kind of like even pick something small and then I go into that like, so why was it so hard to say that? And I start to show like we say that we want to create this safe space, but how can we have safety without trust? Right? We have to create this level of trust before we can create this safe space. And I think that it's been really helpful for my couples because it's like, oh wow, like it's really helped because I now I'm able to see when it feels like I feel resistance to saying something or worry about the reaction. And it's not and now I know if I it's better to just say it and deal with it opposed to holding it and kind of building that resentment that we talk about.
Yeah.
Where did Kelly go?
Yeah, way to kill it. Yeah.
I'm
I think
here.
I think
Oh,
Mm.
she's just she's just hidden.
Yeah. What I do walk away with today is that I think that we're able to, if someone can hear this, they'll hear that there are many different ways to decouple or shift relationships, and not just this way that everyone says like we have, oh yeah, like you guys were talking about, like yeah, we're angry, so we're or you did this thing to me, and it's like it doesn't have to be that way. That's this old way of thinking, and right now we have so many more options and can be more communicative in a way of expressing ourselves. So like, yeah, hey guys, we have options. There's more than just two ways.
I love
I
that.
think the anger, the anger and the fear causes people to want to do one thing, like blow everything up. We've talked about that in the non-monogamy thing, right? The whole fear thing. Um, and when people are calm, they do want to work things out or they're more open to things. But like what you said, I think it was you, Melissa, that was like, we do have to like help them focus on like regulating the healing and because a lot of it's traumatic, right? So we're working with the trauma piece, helping them heal trauma, heal betrayal, all the things that feel like betrayal, simultaneously restructuring. And, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot for them, for the person that is experiencing the trauma to do. And so a lot of times they're getting re traumatized in their relationship, trying to restructure, and the re traumatization's happening at the same time. So it's, um, we do have to kind of like be working on both pieces at the same time.
And
Yeah,
I mean, I'm glad you, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Kelly.
I'm glad you brought up the trauma piece because I think we have to, really be able to look at why is it that this is so scary? Is it because you've had bad experiences your entire life when you shared your emotions? Is it that you never learned how to share your emotions? Is it that within this relationship specifically it's not turned out well? But there are reasons why those things are scary to approach and why those things are scary to say. And I think to really, have a moment of understanding why that is, to give yourself grace, and so that you don't feel that you're a failure for not being able to do it. But there are reasons that this is scary.
Yeah.
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 I was just gonna say, even before, like to reply to what my own thing that I was saying about addressing the emotional pieces first, and maybe even before that, Mo, to your point about trauma work, is like kind of sometimes I have to treat it like, like a crisis. I mean, relationships ending, it can is, a life crisis. And in crises, I think we're trained to really focus on the like in the moment things, and so even emotional processing and things like that can't even do that yet because
Oh, right.
we're just we are just dealing and addressing like very acute, in the moment, like let's make sure you're safe, like let's just get you through the day type of thing. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it all sounds great to restructure and do it in a systematic way. But yeah, if the client is completely destabilized by the breakup or, the decoupling or whatever, then yeah, we have to deal with that first.
Right. I mean, and to the point I was saying of like, but when there is somebody to help you, to guide you, whether it's a therapist, coach, whatever, mentor, I think even just that piece, that is a piece that when we share when with clients, especially if they're new to therapy, letting them know, like front loading that the therapeutic process, there is kind of this common experience of starting therapy
Mhm.
or whatever that can happen, that can go through. Not that you would experience it the same exact way, but it's just something to think about. And that I think, I know for me was really helpful, so you kind of have an idea versus just being in it or blindly going through it or whatever. You kind of have this idea of like, okay, there is somewhat of a process, it's not linear, but these are the things that I can kind of like be aware of and mindful that can make it a
Yeah.
little bit less scary
Yeah.
and bring some light to the situation. Well, there we go, a whole hour.
There you go. Nice. Good
Right?
talk.
I don't know if I have anything else to say about it. I've got a
Yeah.
client.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks
Over
for
and out. Bye,
tuning in.
y'all.
Over and out.
All right, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.